In this video, I'll show you how to make a field which is marked as mandatory within the backend Dataverse table as non-mandatory. So just to give you an example, I have this simple model-driven app. Now, as you see over here in this model-driven app, I have a set of columns. You can see the name column over here. You can see total staff, total aircraft, flying class. Now these are mandatory fields. Now why it is mandatory? Let's go into the backend table and see what's happening with that table. So if I go into airlines and if I go into the columns, and within the column, if I just type in say total. Now if you see total aircraft, if I go into total aircraft, the value which you see over here is business required. That means this field is mandatory. Same with the case, total staff, it is business required. Now, the moment you mark it as mandatory within your backend Dataverse table, all this value will get displayed in the form as well. So, as a mandatory field. Now, this is fine from a structure perspective, but there might be a scenario whereby you want that field to be mandatory, but for some sort of form which you design, you don't want that field to be mandatory and you want user to fill in those values. Like I'll give an example, like say if you're filling out this form for the first time I don't want any fields to be mandatory, or I want very selected fields to be mandatory, and then once it is saved it goes into some different state, I want other fields to become mandatory. Okay, so if that's the case, then how do we do that? Now the useful scenario which I'm talking about over here is like if you want to do a data entry, or if your end user does a data entry and if that user sees 100 fields within the form and 50 of them are mandatory, it will be very difficult for that user to get all the 50 values in the start, right? So in that scenario, this situation will be this particular aspect of the code will come handy, whereby I will be selectively making some fields non-mandatory within the form, and I will be allowing user to save the record. So how do we do that? For that we may need to make use of JavaScript. Now let's go into the form. So what I want is like once this form is loaded, then I want that script to run. So for that, let's go into the form. So I'll show you how to go into the form. So let me close all these things. Let me go into the core solution, go into the airlines table and open the information form. So go to the airline table, go to the forms, go to the information form, main form, and here I'm going to write that JavaScript. So this is that form. Here I'm going to write or call that JavaScript, which will make the mandatory fields non-mandatory. We don't know how many controls, it can be one, it can be multiple controls. Now it is very simple that you pick up a control and then you just make it visible false, or maybe set required as false. But if we have 50 controls, then how do we go ahead and do that? We need to have some sort of an array calculation, right? So for that, what we will do, we will go into the event and we will add an event handler, okay, or onload event handler, or we can add it in this not on the save but on the onload. So here we're going to add that JS. Now in order to write a JS, let's go into Visual Studio Code and let me create a new JS file, and I'll call this as make fields non-mandatory .js. So my function name is function make fields non-mandatory, and I'll put pass in the execution context. So make fields non-mandatory, execution context, I'm passing it. Now here, first thing what we would like to do is first take a reference of the controls. Okay, so we have const, and I'll just call it as controls, whatever control you have in the form. So we'll make use of that. So form context dot UI dot controls dot get. So you get all the controls which are available within the form. And now what we are going to do, we are going to iterate through the controls. So controls dot for each So I'm gonna iterate through the control, and I'll just put a semicolon over here. So we'll iterate through the control and we'll come to this code. Okay. Now you might have, say, maybe 100 fields within the form and 50 of them are mandatory. Now we want 20 of them to be non-mandatory. So for that, we'll make use of an array. So I'll just call it as fields non-mandatory equal to, and then I'll put it in an array. Okay. So let me put all these fields within an array. Now, which fields do you want to make non-mandatory? So let me go to the form again over here, and I'll say instead of name, staff, aircraft, flying class, during the start, I may not have information about uh, total staff and total aircraft. Flying class is fine, but total staff and total aircraft, I may not have that information. So get the logical name of total staff. So gcop underscore total staff, and gcop underscore total aircraft. So other two fields can be mandatory. That's fine with me, but I don't want this fields to be mandatory. Okay, so paste that value. Now make sure that this is an array component. So you put in a double quotes. So let me put it in double quotes, and also put a comma because this is a set of array values. You can add n number of fields over here. Like as I mentioned to you, if you have 50 fields and out of the 25 fields need to be non-mandatory, you can put that value over here. I'll just take an example of say two values. Okay. Now you iterate through the for each, like you're iterating through the control. Now for this, what might happen is you would like to pass on a control variable. Okay. And you use an arrow operator, and then within that arrow operator, let me close this over here. Okay, now within that arrow operator, I say if control dot get attribute. So if the control has an attribute and the type of the basically the type of control dot get attribute is equal to function, you know, then only continue with the loop. Okay. So this is another curly brace. Now here we say we'll take an example of, we know we got an attribute, right? So let's make use of another constant variable. So constant, sorry. So we'll say attribute equal to control dot get attribute. Control dot get attribute. So we get the attribute of say first control. Okay. So and then so this, the iteration which we are doing, it is for all the control within the page. Okay. Now it will take control dot get attribute, and now if attribute dot, so if attribute, so first yes you should get an control, you should get an attribute, right? Now if it is not null, then we will say attribute dot get required level. Now get required level is basically checking it is business required or not. Okay. So this is how you check the get required level, and you say maybe let's say 3 equal to and say required if it is required, and then perform some operation, right? So then you do, and you say attribute dot set required level to be none. So what we are doing on the fly, we are making that field non-mandatory. Now why this value none has come is because I showed you over here, right? Let me go into airline course solution again, go to the airline table and show you one of the fields, a total staff. So we have this total staff. So what we are doing for total aircraft and total staff, instead of making required business required, we are changing it to say optional. Optional is basically in the backend the value is none. For business required, the backend value is required, right? Now what we have done, we have iterated through all the control within the form. We check whether the it is attribute exist for that control, and if yes, then if it is not null, and get the required value as required and make it not none. Okay, so non-mandatory. But what about the selective fields? Now for selective fields, we would like to make this field as non-mandatory. For that, we can append this in the condition over here itself, right? We just say ampersand ampersand and take this value, make fields non-mandatory. I would say rather than using this fields, make fields non-mandatory, I will just rename this because I don't want to name it as a name of the function. So I'll just say fields non-mandatory, and I will select this because this is an array, right? So we need to first check fields non-mandatory, and then we need to check of index of. So we need to check the index of, and what are we getting? We are getting the name. So attribute dot get name. So attribute dot get name equal to, so 1 2 3 equal to -1. So if it doesn't exist within that table, then make it all non-mandatory. Okay. So this is the simple logic. I know there might be a syntax mistake which we may have done. So let me just properly format this, and let me format this document and see if it is all correct or not. So view and go to edit or go to view. I want to wrap, do a word wrap, but that's I'll see. Yep, just to show you, if attribute and an attribute dot get required level equal to required, and iterating through the array of the controls and making sure that the value does not exist over here, then we'll make it none. Okay, so this is the overall logic which I have, and let me save this, and I hope this should work. So let me just confirm the bracket 1 2, and I think we have an additional bracket over here. So let's go through the code again. Function make fields non-mandatory, we have this one brace, then this control for each, then if control, and then we have the another curly brace, and then this statement attribute dot set required level none. So one curly brace, I think we have an additional curly brace over here. So this curly brace belongs to this. So control X, equal to -1, and this one belongs here. So let me get this curly brace. So 1 2, and then semicolon, and then this, and I think we are missing one curly brace. So this one belongs to here. For each is getting completed over here. So this one is this. So let me get rid of all the items over here. So let me remove everything. So if you just get stuck with the curly braces, let's do one by one mapping. So this one is for index of, then we have this one for the function. So we have if condition taken care of, then we have for each, and then we have for semicolon for this, and then for the bigger one. I think we are good with this. Let's see by executing. So make fields non-mandatory. So let's copy this entire JS. So what we may need to do is, like, we may need to create a web resource. So let's go into the solution, new, more, web resource, paste the value, make fields non-mandatory. So the function name, make fields non-mandatory, file type, JavaScript, make fields non-mandatory. I'll just paste over here. I hope the syntax is correct, but we can troubleshoot it. That's fine. So make fields non-mandatory. I'll just publish it. And we go into the form. Now what we want is, when this form loads, we want this to be that code to be executed. So go to events, go to onload event handler, and here we need to add a library, make fields non-mandatory. It has come. Click on add, make fields non-mandatory, select make fields non-mandatory over here, pass execution context as first parameter, and then click on save and publish. So just to give you again a summary of what's happening over here, let me refresh this. Yeah, so I think it has thrown an error. So one of the script for this record has caused an error. So form context is not defined. Yes, we forgot to add that form context. So let's go ahead and fill up that form context, because yeah, even I remember that the same thing, that we are using execution context, we are using form context. So I'd say let's have say const form context equal to execution context dot get form context. So this is the code, right? So if this is all good, control A, control C, and go to the web resource again, make fields non-mandatory. If it goes in that loading state, you just cancel it and then open it again. It will open, because sometimes go in that loop. Click on save, and once you save it, make sure that you publish this. And once you publish it, just go into your JS, do a hard refresh. I think it has not updated, so let me do it again. It says attribute is not defined. So let's go into the JS again. There's something wrong with over here. So form context is execution context at got form context. If control dot get attribute and control dot attribute equal to control dot get attribute, if attribute and attribute dot get record level equal to required, and fields non-mandatory dot index of attribute dot get name equal to 1. Oh, this is the mistake, spelling mistake. And if we set this, control S. So it's very important that you troubleshoot your code, and make sure that you doesn't get caught in that syntax loop. So if you see over here, the attribute spelling was wrong. So I'll click on save. So we are doing the second iteration, and I'll click on publish. And once it is published, as you see over here, we have name mandatory, total staff mandatory, total aircraft mandatory, and flying class mandatory. But we have said that we don't want two fields to be mandatory, like the total staff and total aircraft. Now we have, okay, yep. So now what we have put in our code is other way around. So we said that gcop underscore total staff, gcop underscore total aircraft. Uh, we have put a code of equal to -1, right? Now we can take it another way around. Now, as you see over here, depending on what value you put, so I have put -1, so that means whatever you see over here, that should be mandatory. Okay. Now here, as you see, total staff and total aircraft is mandatory and name is not mandatory. But now if we think that, oh, uh, the other thing, like say name and flying class need to be mandatory and the other way around, what you can do, you can take the logical name from here, from the level up for tool, and then put it in an array. Okay, so that's one way to make that change. Or you change this value, it will be a zero value, and if it is zero, then it will work for making it as non-mandatory or mandatory. Now depending on your scenario, now in this example, we have just put whatever value you want to be mandatory, and then it just iterates through over here and then set the required value as none. Now yes, so the goal of this exercise was to just show you how to make the existing field from mandatory to non-mandatory. Now I have created an array, and then from that array, I have picked up a control for which I want the mandatory fields to remain. Okay, in this code. But earlier we said that, oh no, we want fields to be non-mandatory. Now those all things can be done and controlled by your simple syntax over here. So all the control of this array is controlled through this particular piece of code. Now in this example, I've just taken two fields, but you can have 50 fields over here. Now it is very easy to just iterate through and your code looks much more concise. So guys, thanks for watching, and I'll see you in your next video. Thank you.